Is OBS not picking up my mic? Is that... Oh my gosh. All right, okay. Okay. For crying out loud, I had to reseat that. Okay. Okay, so that... Sorry, that kind of took a bit there. So let's go ahead and roll back a little bit before I jump back into Sneak Attacker. Phalanx formation here. While you are wielding this weapon and a shield, whenever you take the defend reaction, up to one creature of your choice within your melee range is dealt damage equal to the damage die specified by this property. So, the reason that we changed this here is that, one, we can now scale it with the property here, so we can reflect maybe increasing the damage die size. We can do the double damage. We can do... It doesn't have to be specifically tied to the weapon's original damage die. Similarly, we limited this in that it is within your melee range. So once again, that will be giving us an option to do this with shorter weapons. It's going to give us an option to do this with longer polearm weapons. And then instead of just having this do a flat 1d8 damage of just having the shield out, having this spear kind of angled inward, that way we can... once again, it's all about scalability. It's all about having these different options being able to be tweaked and adjusted to the weapons, and so that way we can reach a sort of balance across the board. Reach here, originally this was just skewing and saying, hey, you have a reach property on your character sheet, and that is typically going to be 5 feet for a melee weapon, and so that while you're wielding this weapon, your reach increases by 5 feet, and that is typically fine. Mechanically that would work, but I wanted to clarify that a little bit more here, in that if you are wielding like a polearm and a scimitar, if you attack with the scimitar, your reach is not going to be more than 5 feet, because that's a melee weapon that is for close quarter combat. So when you make an attack with this weapon, you have a melee range of 10 feet. That's exclusively for the polearm. Returning weapon. This is fundamentally unchanged here. We just changed basic to weapon here as a part of ranged weapon attack. Boomerangs, you probably want to have a couple on you just in case you end up doing multiple attacks per turn. And that's usually going to be through teamwork or by, using a ranged opportunity attack sort of deal. So when you throw it as a part of a ranged weapon attack, the weapon returns to its wielder's hand at the start of their next turn. Siege Implement uses a lot of the technology we discussed previously. Once again, relegating this to using the damage die specified by the property rather than doing a flat double damage sort of deal. And then we also clarified that this is when you make an attack with this weapon against a building or other stationary structure, rather than just this weapon deals double damage to them. So it has to be as a part of an attack action. Okay, so that should catch us up there. I'm sorry, my microphone apparently just needed to be reseated there, and I'm genuinely frustrated by that. Okay, so Sneak Attacker here. Sneak Attacker is basically the one step below Backstabber. And I believe Backstabber lives almost exclusively on daggers. So Sneak Attacker is going to be more broadly available. And in my initial drafting stages of Backstabber or of a Backstabber rewrite, I cut out that it can be against a stunned opponent, which mechanically is fine, but that makes it mechanically identical to Sneak Attacker. So Sneak Attacker is going to use a lot of the same language that Backstab uses. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Let's go ahead and get that plugged in here for you. So, Sneak Attacker. Once per turn, when you make a melee weapon attack, during a surprise round, your attack deals an additional 1W damage. This damage is added once all other damage is dealt. Okay, so just to kind of clarify with the points here, versus the previous, once again, we're limiting this to once per turn. So it can't, automatically trigger for every attack this turn. So once again, that's quieting the voice of the weapon so that the action speaks louder. Action-oriented design. Let's see here. It's during a surprise round. Yeah, and so we are still keeping it does an additional 1W damage, even though we could use the language of Sneak Attacker using a upped damage die size. We're willing to keep the 1W here, so that it's just going to do an additional damage die. It's just we're not including this damage die within the damage die for the attack, which is how it typically would have worked. So it would have done 1W, and then if you're during a sneak attack, it would do an additional 1W, so that would be 2W. And so 2W would then scale with your attack's damage die calculations, and so it could do 1, 2, 2, 3 damage dice plus flourishes, perhaps, in there. And you could take 2 damage dice and turn that into 6, or even 7. So what this is saying is, no, if you do a critical hit there, you can theoretically do 3W plus 1. So it's cutting down on the overhead. It's cutting down on die duplication by having this damage is added once all other damage is dealt. So yeah. Stormer here. Let's go ahead and see what all we can say and do here. Stormer, when you make a melee weapon attack as a part of the charge action, your attack deals an additional 1W damage. Once again, this is one of those cases where that 1W can be added into your standard die pool, and it just explodes with the success of the attack. So, what we are going to be saying here is, while you are wielding this weapon, you have advantage when you take the charge action. So that's going to inherently get you a higher result on your charge action, hopefully by 1 tier, or if you have multiple advantages up, guaranteed by 1 tier. You have advantage when you take the charge action. And so since this is also for the charge action, it doesn't inherently limit us to making a melee weapon attack using the charge action. We could also be doing the shove attack as a part of the charge action. So all around, I think that this is a buff, even though it is limiting our damage opportunity here by fixing it with something that would have been broken and needing to be picked. patched. Okay, so Swift Quiver. This is the big thing that we were talking about with the loading weapon property. The loading weapon property exists as a tax on the untrained adventurer, so that Swift Quiver can exist for trained combatants. So the original Swift Quiver text here is, you ignore the loading property, drawing your ammunition as a part of your attack. So of course we had talked about this a lot yesterday with the theory of loading. Why loading should exist, why it theoretically couldn't, the granularity expected by a TTRPG that includes weapon loading, and those are all incredibly valid points. Loading exists in this game because we want ranged characters to shine, because we want there to be a level of difficulty between your average ranger and your average, fighter who picks up a bow. And the fighter who picks up a bow can still take training with it. It's just maybe the duelist, or like if a sorcerer picks up a bow and tries to shoot it, like, they might have gotten a couple basic lessons, but they don't have weapon training, so they don't have Swift Quiver. And so they have to take more time to load. They have to be more deliberate in their actions. So yeah. Swift Quiver. The first time you make a ranged weapon attack on your turn, you perform the load ammunition action as a part of the attack. Load ammunition does not require a minor action. Oh, wait, hang on, we don't need. Sorry, I'm going off of my notes here. Load ammunition does not require a minor action. You do not need to expend any actions to what? To attack, to load your weapon. As a perform the load ammunition as a free action as part of the attack. No, well, free action would be something like at will. Yeah. Attack. When you perform the load ammunition action in this manner, it has a performance time of what? 0? Instantaneous. you ignore its performance type. There we go. So basically, you make a ranged weapon attack as a part of the action. You load your ammunition. It is that easy. It is that simple. Okay. Two-handed here. This weapon requires 2 hands to wield. Creatures that are larger than medium can wield this weapon with 1 hand. So we have a slight change here. Instead of saying creatures that are larger than medium, we're going to say creatures with a size of large or greater. Requires 2 hands to wield. Creatures with a size of large or greater can wield this weapon with 1 hand. I don't believe we're going to have any large player character ancestries, but this is so that a monster can, have 2 great swords dual wielding. Like the Hill Ogre with 2 great swords. Everyone's favorite character. Okay, and then our final weapon property here is going to be versatile. We have weapon flourishes down below, which we will get to. So versatile. Our core original text here says you can use your might or agility when making a melee weapon attack with this weapon. And so that is going to keep the same functionality. However, players are not exclusively going to be making melee weapon attacks here. So and not only melee weapon attacks will call on weapons. So, they're mostly going to. So, we're going to keep some of that here, but we're also going to expand it to basic and special actions. When you make a melee weapon attack as a part of a basic or special action that uses your might attribute. So that's also another part of this. Melee weapon attacks don't call for a might roll. It does not call for an agility roll. Melee weapon attacks are a result caused by taking a basic or standard action that then uses that. And I know it's a very small distinction there, but if you take the basic action ranged weapon attack, basic action melee weapon attack, you're going to make a melee weapon attack as a part of that using your might attribute. So when you make a melee weapon attack using either of these types of actions that uses might, you can use either your might or agility attribute. Once again, it's saying functionally the same thing, just in a more correct way. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into weapon flourishes. So let me first say that weapon flourishes are rather easy. The other thing here is weapon flourishes are rather old. So this is all of them here on screen. For when my lower third there kind of dissipates, there we go. All right. So, one of the things that we are going to be talking about within the homebrewing and game mastery section of the core rulebook here is how weapon flourishes use conditions. And so we have standard weapon flourishes that inflict a condition here, like Crush. So your attack inflicts the target with the slowed condition until the end of their next turn. A creature resistant to the slowed condition is not affected by this flourish. And then we have other flourishes here that inflict conditions that don't exist in the game. And so what I've been calling these are pseudo conditions. So we're going to be changing a little bit of the language here so that these effects work like conditions. So that way, as we continue to develop the game, as we continue to expand what it is we do here, we have the power and the technology to go back, revise this, so that it will inflict this condition. So atrophied, concussed, decelerated, and sundered are pseudo conditions. They have the feature of the target of your attack cannot use armor points to defend against attacks targeting will, while they have the condition on them. So it is a binary condition that either you have it or you don't. Very much like slowed. Slowed doesn't work in tiers. You either are slowed or you are not. And so if this was a standard condition, if this was something that was going to exist in other forms throughout the game, we would say your attack inflicts the target with the concussed condition until the end of their next turn. What that primarily does is it's just going to say, hey, what does the concussed condition do? And since we don't want concussed to be a thing that, I don't know, spellcasters get access to, we don't want this to be something that is going to break containment on weapons. Having it fully relegated to weapon flourishes here as this fake condition, as this pseudo condition, is, I think, the desirable way to handle it right now. Once again, it still opens up the door if we have a strong idea and a strong fantasy of something that is going to do this outside of a weapon flourish, but there are no plans for these to break containment. There are no plans for these to escape this design. This design is a lot of our marshals check against spellcasters. So if you have a spellcaster, you can hit them with your weapon, you can concuss them, and then they can't defend against will attacks. So it's going to allow your martial characters to collaborate with your spellcasting characters against enemy spellcasters, or to further weaken martial characters by reducing their ability to defend against fortitude or reflex. So that is a part of that design. So, yes, let's go ahead and get these going here. So, as talking about beforehand, atrophy. The target of your attack cannot use armor points to defend. Defend, we should be italicizing because it's an action here. Armor points, we'll leave it as capitalized now, but we probably don't need to. Against attacks targeting their fortitude until the start of their next turn. So we're going to change this here to be in line with the other conditions until the end of their next turn. Now, mechanically, what does this do? Changing this one word is not going to change anything because you cannot take the defend action on your turn because it's a reaction. It's something that you take off of your turn. So whether or not this ability ends at the start or end of a creature's turn is irrelevant. It's not going to change the gameplay in any meaningful way, but what it does is it brings it in line with the other conditions. So that way, if we need to make this into a condition, if there is that reasonable fantasy, we can just errata this text and say, hey, it inflicts this condition. And it will change the effect of the action, not at all. So we're going to just go ahead and swap these pseudo conditions here to say the end of their turn. Boom. And boom. And then all of a sudden, we've got 4 of them done. Crush here, we are not changing at all. This is just the standard condition text. So, Crush, your attack inflicts the target with the slowed condition until the end of their next turn. A creature resistant to the slowed condition is not affected by this. Nice and simple. Okay, so our first one that we're going to actually have to do a good bit of more design with here is going to be Disarmament. So Disarmament entered this game when it was still largely based on 5e and largely built as a 5e weapons mod. So the original core text of Disarmament is the target of your attack must succeed on a TN 10 plus agility, dexterity, sleight of hand, or resistance challenge, or drop 1 item of your choice that it is holding. If the target fails the challenge by 5 or more, the item is ensnared by the weapon and brought to you as a part of the attack. So, let's break this down as far as what it's saying. So, you attack with your weapon. Your attack, you are trained, and you get a critical hit, and you can do a critical effect as a part of this attack. And so, what happens then is your opponent would then take, once again, while this was working, it was a core die roll, so it was a d20, and they were rolling against a target number of 10 plus your agility. And they were rolling a dexterity sleight of hand resistance roll. And so, I'm thinking you're already starting to see this whole breakdown. This is a critical effect. This is a reward that is theoretically in place of bonus damage. And all of a sudden, we are potentially taking away that reward by having the opponent roll to resist this. We are already then now creating more time, creating more effort into resolving the one attack that is here. So, how do we fix this? Once again, this is creating this push-pull sort of connection where we are attacking, and then our opponent is trying to resist it, which that makes sense. But we also have things in this game like resolute attacks, where you get additional flourishes on all of your tiers. And so, can we have Disarmament exist in a game where any weapon attack you make can flourish? And I don't know about that. Similarly, one of the things that I like about this ability is that it has a specific granularity where there are bonus effects built in. Now, for a 5e style game or a 5e based game, this works like the Medusa's Glare, where an opponent who fails their saving throw by 5 or more has an additional effect that hurts them more. I think that is very good design, and I wish they had done more with it. It's also this very Pathfinder-esque sort of design strategy where, like Pathfinder 2e took this and kind of ran with it with their critical hits system, So if you're just 10 or more over their AC, that's a critical hit. And I do quite like that design, or like that style of design. And it would probably be something that I would look to emulate with this game if I was doing a hit miss style armor class target threshold roll style system. Whereas, since this is a game where you always hit, it's more descendant from Draw Steel rather than Pathfinder. Once again, having an attack that always hits, having an attack that always flourishes, means that you have the chance to always disarm an opponent. So what can we do to increase this sort of granularity? So let's go ahead and work through what I had drafted, and then we will kind of continue talking about it here. Okay. So, disarmament. The target of your attack must drop one item of your choice that it is holding. Your choice that it is holding. Boom. So that is going to automatically, just this first clause here is going to automatically mean you're always going to basically be having your opponent kind of be Butterfingers if you are attacking with a resolute. Is it resolute? I believe it's resolute. Resolute basic attack there. That it is holding. But if you roll a tier 4 result on your attack, on your attack roll, the item is ensnared by your weapon. And brought to you as a part of the attack. Okay, so the way that this is going to work is now we are inherently limiting the extra cool part of the flourish, snatching the weapon out of an opponent's hand and bringing it to you, to exclusively be the tier 4 result. So that is the critical effect here. And then having the creature drop the item is just going to be a basic effect because they can pick that up again on their turn. And so by introducing this check here about the roll of a tier 4 result, that is removing the push-pull mechanic of having the opponent make a resistance roll, make a saving throw against a critical hit. Once again, critical hits don't really exist in this game, but tier 4 result is functionally the critical hit. So yeah, that is the new technology for disarmament here, and we are going to see it again, I believe, with Rend and or Grappling Strike. Once again, I have these all over here in my notebook from what I when I make notes about the game during downtime at work. So yeah. Falter here. No change, because once again this is a standard condition standard condition inflicting flourish. Your attack inflicts the target with the dazed condition until the end of their next turn. Creature resistant to the dazed condition is not affected by this flourish. Nice, simple, good. Grappling Strike. This is going to use similar technology to disarmament because the target of your attack must succeed on a TN10 plus agility, strength, athletics, resistance challenge, or be grappled until the end of the next turn. A creature resistant to the grappled condition is not affected by this flourish. That, once again, TN10 plus agility, strength. We have been systematically purging TNs from this game, and I think they live exclusively in like 2 places where it is players making target number checks against themselves. So it's not slowing down the combat at the table. It's not requiring the input of other players. It is just players checking something against themselves. Like it basically does not come up, and that is the goal. So, grappling strike here. If you roll a tier 3 or higher result on your attack roll, your attack inflicts the target with the grappled condition until the end of their next turn. A creature resistant to the grappled condition is not affected by this flourish. So let's go ahead and just kind of put this in here. So what this is saying is, this is a the start of this is a gate. If you roll a tier 3 or higher result on your attack roll, so this is inherently removing resolute basic attacks from the equation. You cannot grapple someone with a tier 1 result. You might have a whip. You might be one of the best whip masters in the RPG here. But if you are going to grapple your opponent, you need to score above the median rolls. You need to have a tier 3 or 4 flourish in order to do this. This actually is a critical effect because grappled as a condition substantially reduces what the GM can do with that creature on their turn. And so the GM is also a player at the table. The GM also needs to have fun to be able to have their characters act on their turn. And so, once again, grappled it's strong, it's dramatic. And if you are able to get this off, once again, and you have a substantial chance here since it is a tier 3 or 4 result to get the grapple off. But that still requires then the GM would be doing grapple. So this is just to get rid of resolute basic attacks doing this, in short. So yeah, that's how grappling strike is going to work going forward. We're getting rid of target numbers. We are getting things good there. So Rend here. So Rend is going to be, at one hand, similar to some of our other condition inflicting weapon flourishes. However, Rend is probably a little bit closer to Wound as far as a basic property that you can do with your weapon. So, the original core text here for Rend is, your attack inflicts your target with the damage over time hemorrhage condition, dealing 1d6 non-magical necrotic damage at the start of their turn until they succeed on a TN 10 plus Might, Constitution, Endurance, Resistance challenge, or take fire damage. So, you can already see one of the things that we're going to be getting rid of here, the TN 10 plus Might Resistance challenge. So, Rend. Your attack, actually, hang on, give me my purple pen here, so that way I can have this be separated. Okay, so your attack inflicts the target with the damage over time hemorrhage condition. Okay, dealing I'm already questioning a choice here. 1d6 here. So it's this is hard coding 1d6 into the system. Dealing necrotic damage. Hang on. I think d6 is probably fine. D6 should be the baseline. Like, equal to the damage. I'm gonna steal this technology there and put it in here. Dealing necrotic damage equal to the damage die specified by this flourish. To the target at the start of their turn. Start of their turn. Start of their turn until they succeed their resistance challenge. Okay, so resistance challenges are then going to be codified into how conditions work here. So resistance challenges, you're going to be making it is still going to be a binary constitution endurance challenge. I believe you just need to score a tier 3 or higher result on that challenge in order to have the condition ended. But that is going to be living as a rule with the conditions themselves. Okay, cool. Yeah. Then we also are going to have the. Sorry, I was distracted by the removal of a spam bot in Twitch chat. I had recently put in a new bot detection and a removal tool, and it's working. And I'm just excited and happy, and all is good. Until they succeed their resistance challenge. Creatures without blood and creatures immune to necrotic damage are not affected by this flourish. Creatures without blood and creatures immune to necrotic damage are not affected by this flourish. There we go. So that is the new rend. I believe it's more text. I believe it's more, heavy design language there. But I think that it is more specific, it is better, and it is just in general more useful from a both player and GM side of things than the old one was. Sunder, we talked about that before. This is just another pseudo condition ability where we are changing from the start of their turn to the end of their turn at no real cost to the ability's effectiveness. Tripping Strike. Oh boy, this is fundamentally the same as Grappling Strike. So let's just go ahead and copy Grappling Strike. So, if you roll a tier 3 or higher result on your attack roll, the target of your attack is not prone. is the updated version of this text here, because otherwise it is rolling the resistance or being knocked prone. Here. If your attack is knocked prone. And so we don't need to have anything here about until the end of your next turn because it's prone. The way to end the prone condition is to stand up. A creature resistant to the prone condition. I don't think there are any creatures that are going to be resistant to prone. So there are going to definitely be creatures that are immune to prone. And so obviously a creature who is immune to the prone condition is not going to be affected by this. And since what would resistance to prone be? It would be something like stability, where your character would be pushed backward. It would be maybe you reduce the stand-up cost for getting up from prone. So I'm imagining that this would be like a dwarven ability, where getting up from prone is going to cost you 5 feet instead of 10 feet, or something along those lines. I don't remember off the top of my head what the movement cost for getting up from prone is. But what I can say is we don't need to say creatures resistant to a prone condition are not affected by it, because what would resistance to prone be? Like, mechanically speaking. And then finally, wound here is not going to be changing because that is the default critical hit result. Your attack deals an additional 1W damage. That is saying, hey, I wound you, you're going to be taking a bit more damage. It's just that. It's you roll your die again. Okay, so this is our full list of new and updated weapon properties here. I'm going to set these here to 1 seems big. Let's go ahead and try maybe 3. Yeah, 3 is probably fine. What's 2 look like? 2 is good. I'm gonna go with 2. So this here, we're going to go ahead and bring this over to our RPG's appendix. So that's going to be here in core textbook here. Appendix B, weapon properties and flourishes. Boom. And let's go ahead and then change all of this text here to black. The purple text is primarily just so I can see what all we do on stream, where all we get to. And then I also have red text for if I do something that's, off camera. So yeah, as far as core text goes, there we go. We are all good. So what do we do now? Well, now we go to our weapons tab for drafting, and we have areas where we're going to need to input text, and then we're going to need to be adding in our weapon tables here. So if I go to our drafting section here, that's Discord notes. Nope. Should be in this one. Yeah, armor. And then we go past the armor section here, because once again, these are a little bit more unorganized. But we're already into it. We have all of these tables here with what weapons can be. Excuse me. What all weapons can do here. We're going to be updating this table because we don't need some of the things on here. Like if you look here for attacks, melee weapon attack, might versus fortitude. we don't need this, because we don't need to call out that this is only going to be used for melee weapon attacks. We don't need to call out that it's going to be using might. We don't need to call out that it's going to be targeting fortitude, because that's something that is going to be told to us by the action. It's going to be saying, hey, this is a melee weapon attack. You can use a melee weapon. It's saying the attack is going to say, hey, this is going to use your might. This is going to be targeting the opponent's fortitude. And it's just going to all be that there. It's all going to be built into the action. So we're going to be getting rid of things like that. Sorry, I'm looking at the clock over here just because I know I'm going to need to run to the store to get ingredients for dinner tonight. Making some homemade pizza, and it's going to be fantastic. I think it's just going to be a standard supreme, but I've got some extra cheese sticks here, so I'm going to do a stuffed crust, and yeah, it's going to be good. Sorry, I'm thinking about where we go now. What all the next step here is going to be. I think for right now, the next step is going to be bringing over all of these weapons, or at least building a new weapons table, which I think new weapons table might be the smartest way to go about this, but it's also going to be the longest. So I think what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to call the stream around here. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to run to the store, grab food and ingredients and such, and probably start the process of migrating some of this over and or working on text. And then maybe it'll be later today. I don't think so. Actually, what should I do here? I should look at my schedule and see when I'm going to be on next, when I can be on next. Thursday I am, or Friday evening I should be able to do something. Probably Friday around 4 o'clock my time will be when I get to do a stream next. So there, we're going to be talking about weapon text. We'll be talking about changes to the weapon diagram, and we'll probably be going through and re-updating the different properties. So I think until then, that's going to be the plan. So let me go ahead and take a quick look around. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start the process of raiding out here. It looks like I found another game designer here who is working on designing gods in Hero Forge and talking about divine pantheons and such. So let's go ahead and jump right on over there. Yeah. I hope you guys all had a fantastic day today. I will be seeing y'all in the near future. And until then, take care. Let's go ahead and hang out and do some world building.